I broke through the carbonate, that's how I got free. Jabba back off because there's no stopping me. Postmodern player, sample-tastic, flows ekphrastic. I get drastic, hey, watch the plastic. Yo, I name check and leave you drastic.
Welcome to the MacGuffin, episode 140. I'm Spencer.
I'm Greg.
Today we're going to be talking about Richard Linklater.
Woo!
Interesting director in Hollywood. Yeah. Sort of fluctuates between indie and commercial, much like Steven Soderbergh. I find those to be in the same sort of camp.
I can see that. I can definitely see that.
Sort of a guy who's on the rise the last couple decades. Very wide variety in his career, and we'll sort of touch upon this as we go through this. But we got to start at the beginning. The one that started it all.
Literally.
Slacker.
Literally started it all.
Yeah. Slacker from 1991. This is the story of a bunch of vignettes from Austin over the course of a day. Very interesting film. What do you think of Slacker before I get into my thoughts?
Well, besides the fact that, interestingly enough, as a longtime Kevin Smith fanboy, Kevin Smith has said that he would never have made Clerks if Slacker had not existed. So for that alone, I have to love it. But in actually watching Slacker, Slacker is exactly the kind of indie movie that you would expect to never get popular. Which is why it's amazing that it ever even got enough notoriety to give Richard Linklater a career. Because it's totally just a kind of like rolling consciousness of story. Kind of goes character, their story ends, another character story picks up their story end. And they're not necessarily all strongly connected. It's more just, hey, here's a day in Austin kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely... I agree with you. The Kevin Smith thing alone does make it worthwhile. And it does have some interesting segments. I don't love it all, but it's kind of amazing how popular it has become. I mean, I think a lot of people have a lot of nostalgia towards Slacker, which I don't necessarily understand or agree with. I think it's decent. I'd say it's decent, but I don't love it.
I can understand that. For me, it's more of a cultural impact that came out of it than it is its actual...
The idea of a slacker, I think things like Clerks really popularized the idea of slacker much more than Slacker actually did, even though Slacker really put that term out there into the consciousness.
I can agree with that.
And it's amazing. I mean, the film was nominated for, let's see, Indie Spirit Award for Best First Feature, nominated for Best Director. It was nominated for Grand Jury Prize at Sundance. Wow. So clearly... we are probably in the minority of not loving this, but this really, it feels like an indie film from the early 90s. Like,
and it just, I mean, and I think that's part of less for me nostalgia, even though since it's been a while since I've seen it, there's probably, unfortunately, nostalgia in there. For me, it was just simply the fact that, like, this is a nobody who made a film with nobodies out of nowhere about nobody that doesn't really do much, yet somehow, in that all, he still managed to get success out of it. And that to me is just an amazing
that's the thing that I was going to say. The thing as we move on to the next film is that it kind of blows my mind that you can go from some recognition to a massive project the way he did with Dazed and Confused. Slacker, very small project. Nobody really major associated with it.
Dazed and Confused, the exact opposite.
And granted, a lot of the people in Dazed and Confused were not huge famous people yet, but the cast of Dazed and Confused is phenomenal. I mean, you've got Jason London as the lead, which is fine, but the other characters are even more impressive. I mean, you have Ben Affleck, Cole Hauser, Marissa Ribisi, Adam Goldberg, Rory Cochrane, Mila Jovovich, Joey Lauren Adams. It's kind of crazy.
Especially because this is what, 93? Yeah. So you're talking about, like, before a lot of these people were anything. And Parker Posey, I think, is in it?
Yep,
I don't know if you said
exactly.
it
Totally. No, I did not. That's a good one as well. It's about, let's see, the last day of high school, or junior high and high school on... in 1976, and the adventures that the kids get into. Specifically,
Matthew McConaughey?
Yep. Specifically, Party is involved, which may or may not be in our top 5 parties. So look into that if you haven't already.
MacGuffinPodcast.com to find out.
Yes. I very much enjoy this film.
It's so great.
It's definitely a much more mainstream Richard Linklater, and given Slacker, it's kind of amazing that he was able to so smoothly make that transition to mainstream filmmaking. And as I said, like Soderbergh, he really does seem to go back and forth between those two arenas very effortlessly. It's kind of amazing that he is able to do it.
I think that's
so
probably why he's been so had so much success, because whenever he takes one of those interesting indie experiments, he can simply just bounce right back into a commercial success just without even trying, it seems.
And unlike Soderbergh, I don't think he's said there's an end in sight for him, so hopefully more of it will come. Bouncing back into the indie world, though, he jumped back to Before Sunrise in 1995.
Love this movie.
Story of, I guess, a man and a woman who meet on a train in Europe, who spend one romantic evening together and get to know each other a little bit.
Yep, they get off, and I believe it's like Vienna. Yeah, and he decides he'll catch the train in the morning back to where he's supposed to go, and they decide to just hang out that evening. It's Ethan Hawke and
Julie
Delpy. I can never remember her name.
Yep. And it, I mean, interesting couple. I mean, I'm not a huge Ethan Hawke fan, and I mean, honestly, Julie Delpy sort of pops on my radar once every blue moon.
Yeah.
But they really have good chemistry together.
Yes.
So much so that they're actually nominated for an MTV award for Best Kiss.
Wow.
Good on them for that.
This is one of those movies that just takes the idea of relative strangers in a small slice of time, and just goes like, hey, they just met, let's deal with all the things of them meeting and interacting for a short amount of time before things can get too complicated or deep. We'll just end it.
And I think this is one of those instances where you could sort of question my romanticism.
Oh,
in
interesting.
terms of like, I think the film is okay. Like I think it's okay. It's mostly just like a talky film though. Like, and I think that's fine. Yeah. But I don't think it blows me away to the level that a lot of people do. I know a lot of people who love this film, especially around the MacGuffin.
I'm one of them.
And I'm okay with it. I'm fine, but I don't love it. Like, it's fine. I'll watch it. It's enjoyable. I enjoy it. But I'm not like, oh my god, Before Sunrise, like the third, and we'll get into this more as the series goes along. But like, I'm not like punching myself in the face over the prospect of another film in the series, like a lot of people are. And so it's cool. It's cool.
I had a black eye, but it healed.
Yeah, that's cool. But
and I don't know. I think for me it's a realism aspect. It's less that it's like, oh, how romantic. I want someone who connects with me like that, and more like, I just met this person. We've got a limited window. Let's just see what happens. And I think the fact that they have these long drawn out discussions about life and their opinions, plus the movie does a really neat job of just changing scenery often,
very
so that
beautiful
there's some
scenery.
But I just thought that it's just very genuine in a way that, see, in your sense of being like, oh, I don't like, maybe I'm not romantic-y, I purposely stay away from most romantic movies because of the like gushy lovey-dovey, like just kind of saccharine, simple relationships that just, I met you and now I'm in love with you. And this is much more cerebral and much more like connecting with the person on a personal level, and then something growing out of that. And I guess I can understand that. Maybe I don't remember entirely, but maybe I saw this movie when I was single and I was a hopelessly sad single person, so maybe that had something to do with it too. Who knows?
Couldn't hurt. But nevertheless, very popular film.
Yes.
Definitely a cult following at the very least. He continued on this sort of offbeat sort of trend with The Waking Life in 2001, which, I mean, is sort of an experimental type film, I guess would be the best way to describe it. And it's about a man who shuffles through dream meetings, various people, and discussing the meaning and purpose of the universe.
Main actor is the young kid from Dazed and Confused.
Oh, yeah. Willie Wiggins.
Yes.
And it's kind of a quirky film. I mean, you got like let's see, you got Ethan Hawke and Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy in it as their characters from Before Sunrise. In small role.
It's kind of vignette-y because it's somebody dreaming. It's supposed to be lucid dreaming.
But I mean, you also got that sort of experimentation of way visuals look, which would come back in his career later.
It's kind of pseudo rotoscoping.
Yes, and again, a slew of Independent Spirit Award nominations came from it. Best Feature, Best Director, Best Screenplay.
This, I almost feel, is what would happen if you attempted to make a documentary about dreams and then tried to turn it into a fictional story. Because it's kind of a series of dialogues or monologues from intellectuals
Yeah,
to
kinda.
and with the main character about life, reality, and dreaming.
Yeah, I could see
So-
that. Maybe that's where it came from.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll someday ask Richard Linklater and you can bust that question out on him.
Bust that egg of knowledge on his forehead.
You would do that. Again, though, he ventures back into that realm of mainstream, and he goes so mainstream it's crazy at times. And it's the next one we're talking about is The School of Rock in 2003. It's just a couple years later, and this is a film that made $100+ million, starring Jack White, Jack Black, right, as a musician like Jack White, who is kicked out of his band, gets desperate for Battle of the Bands, goes to a school, recruits young kids in it to play with him, ultimately takes them with him to it. Really, I mean, super mainstream film, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is written by Mike White, who's also in the film. Jack Black and Mike White.
I see where your confusion came from.
Who plays his friend, Ned Schnobly.
Nice name.
Who takes his persona when he goes to the school as a substitute teacher. Craziness ensues. The
Hijinks.
Kids form a band. Music comes out of it. Again, another film that they've talked about making a sequel to. I actually think they're on the road to do that, from what I've heard. Again, a partnership was formed with Jack Black and Richard Linklater that's continued on until now with Bernie. What are your thoughts on this movie, though?
Actually, this one is one that I'll get to the point where I'm about to hit play on it, and I just never can seem to get myself to watch it. I don't know. I own almost every other movie you've already listed, so the fact that I haven't is kind of...
It's enjoyable. It's really just, in some ways, a little too saccharine sweet for me at times. I definitely find it to be entertaining, but I saw it in theater. I think I even own it. I don't even remember. Maybe I do.
I believe somewhere I might have a signed poster of it if you ever want one.
Really? Interesting.
Or maybe someone who leaves us a review.
Yeah, there you go.
I probably should double check to make sure I have it first, but...
You can sign it, worst case scenario.
Buy a new one.
But it's
signed by Jack Black, by the way.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
How did you get that?
A friend who worked at a radio station.
Wow.
Gave me a signed poster for a movie I hadn't seen for my birthday.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But it's a fun film. I don't know if it's one of those films you can rewatch time and time again, but the music in it is pretty good.
Yeah.
The kids and the band they created in the movie and for the movie is really pretty entertaining and solid. So at the very least you get that out of it. And Jack Black was nominated for a Golden Globe.
Wow.
For comedy musical. Comedy musical, let's put it out there.
But still, I mean, whoever thought Jack Black would be nominated for an award other than a Razzie?
And I'm kind of curious to go back and look and see who else was nominated, because he's enjoyable in the film, but I'm also wondering who was nominated, because again,
it is the Golden Globes.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, snap.
Oh, burn.
Hollywood Foreign Press, suck on that. But interestingly enough, Richard Linklater sort of returned to a world he had experienced before before Sunset.
Yes.
Which revisited the characters of Jesse and Celine from before Sunrise.
And I think this is like 10 years later.
9 years.
Yes, which is actually, I think, the exact amount of number of years since when the original came out.
A little under 8.
95 to 2004.
Boom.
Boom!
Right. Fair enough. You're right.
Which I think is part of the reason that they made it that distance, because the actors had exactly aged that much. So they're just like, well, screw it. If we have to pick a time, why not make it the real one?
And one of the interesting things is that this time, Richard Linklater involved Julie Delpy and Ethan Hawke in writing it.
Makes sense. If you want to bring them back into a story, maybe be like, hey, you were pretty invested in this. Do you want to do...
Strangely enough to me, though, like, the budget of the film was $10 million.
That seems pretty high.
That seems pretty high. Like,
it's probably all travel.
I don't know if it's even all travel. It's probably all Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy just being expensive. It's sort of like
post-Gattaca, Ethan Hawke and Training Day. He's like, come on, where's my money?
It's probably pretty close to Training Day. You're right. But sort of like, if you're so heavily invested in this film, why are you charging so much money to be in it? Don't be a dick. That's all I'm saying.
But for the record, it's our assumption that they're the reason it costs so much.
I'm just throwing that theory out there. Perhaps someone can correct it, but somebody threw that theory out at some point.
But yes, this is interesting because it revisits these two characters. They meet up again. Like, one of them, I think, is by this time is married and has a kid. I don't exactly, or maybe it was
I don't
estranged.
think they're married.
I don't
think they're estranged. I think there's that sort of hint at will they or won't they connect again.
Yeah, and it's just jumps right back into that story in showing the same things that they went through, but now with the the awkwardness of time, growing older, having experienced their own life rather than being young, idealistic people who, when they started out, where they could just assume love would always work. Now they're people who've had 9 years where it didn't. Interesting
enough, I saw this film at a gala at SIFF that they had for it in, I think it was probably 2003, 2004.
Okay.
Even though I was sort of like, I enjoyed the first one. Whatever reason, I was like, I will be going to that film. And I think Richard Linklater was there, maybe Julie Delpy too. I think
maybe you were
Ethan
starstruck.
Maybe. Ethan Hawke, not there though. He pulled out. So you suck, Ethan Hawke.
Only Spencer thinks that.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, it was also nominated for adapted screenplay. Not sure what it was adapted from, unless they're considering the first one to be the original source material, or somehow they wrote a screenplay that.
Maybe
story?
Maybe the story. Who knows?
Or maybe it's adapted about the character. I don't know what exactly the criteria is that made it an adapted screenplay nominee, but it got nominated, so that's cool. As well as for Indie Spirit Award for screenplay and Writers Guild for screenplay. So people darn love that screenplay. Yeah. So if you're a writer, you might want to look into the screenplay because people seem to like it.
And something I'll bring up about it, not as much as like why I'm excited for the possibility of a third one, but just in general, I think that the two movies together meld so beautifully. Is the problem with a lot of romantic stories is that it's just a slice of time, and by getting both, it really brings the reality of what actually happens in life home.
That is true.
Because you're like, oh, after all this, they had this great night, and they're clearly going to be lovers forever. Nope, 9 years later, still not together. Like that's kind of realistic, as much as it may suck for your heart.
Yeah,
so.
True. Next, we're going to move on to another big one that you love, is Scanner Darkly. An undercover cop in the not-too-distant future who becomes involved with a dangerous new drug and begins to lose his own identity as a result.
Based on a Philip K. Dick story?
Which is something I wanted to get into, because if you don't know Philip K. Dick, he is one of the most prolific sci-fi writers of the 21st
Let's go.
century.
Let's see. We got Blade Runner.
Yep.
We've got
based on Do Androids Dream of Electric Sleep?
Yes. We've got Minority Report.
I don't know what that one's based on.
Okay. We've got Paycheck, the really bad Ben Affleck, Uma Thurman.
Do you know what that's based on?
No, I don't remember this.
Okay.
Probably Paycheck.
How about let's throw this in
You know what they're all based on. Okay, never
next.
mind. Oh,
Next, based on The Golden Man.
Okay.
Regardless of what you think of these films, these are great stories.
Yes, and and concepts, even if the way they were executed isn't good.
The Adjustment Bureau, based on the Adjustment Team. Total Recall.
That's right. Yes.
Based on We Can Remember If You Were for Wholesale, or no, We Can Remember If We Can Remember It For You Wholesale.
Okay. Makes sense.
But like, think of all that stuff that he's been involved with. It's crazy.
Come on. And the dude had Philip K. Dick had a lot of mental issues and was really troubled.
I would imagine if you're writing those stories.
Wrote a lot, if I remember correctly, wrote a lot of his work in a very short time and died early.
Sounds like he kind of died. We're dead.
Which is actually one of the things that's interesting about Scanner Darkly, is at the end of Scanner Darkly, there is a kind of memoriam to all of the people who went crazy because of drug psychosis, which was what... if I remember correctly, Philip K. Dick was kind of dealing with in life that caused him to create the story. So,
that was
starring Keanu Reeves and
Winona Ryder, re-teaming with Rory Cochrane from Dazed and Confused.
Rotoscoped, that weird kind of cartoony.
Yeah, really
sort
of was at the same time as those Charles Schwab commercials, though. Which
those actually came out slightly later.
They did, but it was still like, I think that kind of was more pop culture and sort of blended with that being the first as opposed to this one being the first.
Great supporting roles by Robert Downey Jr. and Woody Harrelson and Rory Cochrane, as you brought up. Very strange, weird movie, as all Philip K. Dick stories are. Probably one of my top Keanu Reeves.
Interesting.
I think Keanu Reeves really does good when you can let him be kind of blank. Yeah. And when he's animated, that's a perfect opportunity for him to be blank and blank.
It's good. I mean, it's hard to even remotely put it in the conversation for me above like Point Break or The Matrix. Like, boom, those are like two slam dunks.
That's why I said in the
Bill
top
and Ted,
list.
Excellent
That's why I
Adventure.
said in the top list. I didn't say it's number one. I said it's in the top list.
Maybe we'll get into that next time he mixes.
I love Point Break. I don't love Point Break because Keanu Reeves is a good actor in it.
He's not bad in it. We'll get into Keanu Reeves at a later date.
Good. But anyway, yes.
Brings us to now, April 27th. We have Bernie coming out, starring Jack Black as the title character, Bernie. This is based on a true story about a small town in Texas.
Which is why it's interesting to me that you brought up Soderbergh. Because it's a kind of a true story fiction.
Yes.
Soderbergh jumps into that. Sorry, continue.
But it's about a small mortician who strikes up a friendship with a wealthy widow who kills her and goes to great lengths to make it look like she's still alive. And based on a true story, stars Jack Black as the guy who's the mortician, and Matthew McConaughey as the prosecutor trying to put him into jail.
I think Shirley MacLaine is the...
yes, the widow.
Yep.
And I saw this at South by Southwest.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. It's enjoyable. We have a review on our site up right now by Alan.
Hey, MacGuffinPodcast.com.
Yeah, I'll throw up some roundtables that I was at. Not a lot of fun roundtables. I'll digress from that, but I'll throw them up. Nevertheless, that Richard Linklater, Matthew McConaughey, and Jack Black were all at.
Oh, nice.
So that was just fun at the very least. Here's some Jack Black singing, some funny Richard Linklater, Matthew McConaughey. Interesting thing to note, though, going into this film, Matthew McConaughey, 3-0 as a lawyer. 1 in A Time to Kill, 1 in Amistad, and 1 in Lincoln Lawyer. I'm not going to say what happens in this movie as a lawyer, but he's a pretty good lawyer, that's all I'm saying. It's decent. Like, it's kind of this weird thing that sort of, I won't say glamorizes Bernie as sort of a victim, but at the same time, he's a guy who killed someone.
Yeah.
So it's sort of this weird balance of like, he's a murderer, but is he a bad guy? And Richard Linklater talked at the round table about, anyone can happen to you on, if you have a bad day. If anyone can have a bad day, and this can happen to you, sort of, basically. And I empathize with that idea, but at the same time, he murdered her and covered it up. Even though he's a mortician, you want to give her a good death and all these other things you could say, it's still a guy who murdered someone. And you sort of make him...
Like, nobody's accidentally murdered someone who didn't mean it.
But, like, as a sympathetic hero in your story, there's this weird thing going on there. So, it was okay. I didn't love it. And it's, the interesting thing about it was sort of like, he tells it sort of through the story of... tells the story through the town gossips, talking about the story in a lot of ways. And, I mean, cuts between that and the actual story unfolding, which is kind of an interesting way of talking about, especially, that small town culture, which I liked. But the story itself is sort of meh.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, it's a different project, sort of mid, sort of a little Hollywoody, but more indie, I would say. Jack Black's good, though. I like him in that. Yeah. So let us know your thoughts about this. Are you going to go see Bernie? Do you like Richard Linklater? Let us know at MacGuffinPodcast.com. It's definitely an interesting cat. Definitely look forward to seeing what he does next.
Are you interested in whatever the third before whatever would be called? I mean, what would you call it? After sunrise / sunset? I mean, I don't. Look, I'm digressing.
Lunch,
I'm digressing.
Before dinner? I don't know.
Before moonfall? I don't know.
I saw that moon.
Before 2012?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. Definitely not before 2012. We know that for sure. But let us know about that, and join us next week for our DVD rundown of May 1st.
Yes.
As we get ready for that. And then we'll talk about the Avengers and stuff as well. We'll let you know as we go there. But let us know your thoughts at MacGuffinPodcast.com, Twitter.com/MacGuffinCast, Facebook.com/MacGuffinPodcast, phone number 323-761-9842. Find us on iTunes, Blip.tv, Miro. We're on Roku. Check in at GetGlue at MacGuffinPodcast.com/GetGlue. Leave us reviews on our iTunes. We appreciate that. And
you might end up with a signed Jack Black poster someday. Who knows?
Maybe.
We'll see.
Or a signed Greg Thomas School of Rock poster. Either way, it's pretty awesome. Don't you think?
I do.
We'll see you next time.
1000 can't stop me. I'm on fire tonight. Magneto can't stop me. I'm on fire tonight. Even Zod can't stop me. I'm on fire tonight. It's tight. Don't even try to bite the side of style. Mr. Spock can't stop me. I'm on fire tonight. The Wrath of Khan can't stop me. I'm on fire tonight. The Borg can't stop me. I'm on fire tonight. Because I've got space game and it feels all